What's going on, guys? Tim with Whisker Stix again, number 2 in the series. Might be the last video. I don't know if I'll have to make any more. This is going to be the bottom rig version for fishing on the bottom, or if you're not using a slip float, goes for Carolinas, Santee Coopers, three-way rigs, for all the guys who do the rivers and tailwaters or deep reservoirs, or even on a boat if you're not fishing and you're just suspending or drifting and you want to see your rods bend at night. This is one way to set them up for when you're not using a slip rig. I'm going to show a basic Carolina rig, just in case somebody out there doesn't know and wants to know. It's very simple, probably the most renowned catfishing type rig there is. I'm going to use a 2-ounce no-roll sinker, feed my main line through. Simple as that. Completely optional, don't have to. I do it anyway. Is a bead, and these beads will protect your knot for when you tie to the swivel. That's all you need above your swivel. Just whatever weight you want to use, whether it's a pyramid, bank sinker, no roll sinker, egg sinker. There's so many different kinds of sinkers. Any type of weight you want to use. You can use 20 ounces if you want, 1 ounce, half an ounce. You could use, if you're just fishing for little bullheads in a creek and you're using a baby version, use some little split shots. Doesn't matter. This is just your basic no float rig. Sinker, bead, and then polymer knot on the top. If you don't know a polymer knot, I will show you. Just bend your line over in half, feed it through your swivel. I don't know if you can see this because of my black shirt. Take your little bunny ear here and curl it through itself like you're doing a square knot. Feed your swivel through the loop. Make sure your tag end and your main line's on the same end of this loop when you pull. Some of this heavier line's harder to pull. This is a 30-pound mono again. Same line as the last video. Keep your tag end and your main line on the same side so when you pull it tight it cinches up. And that's all there is to that. Boom. Carolina rig. I will add here, a little leader, because I'm going to set this back up for my own personal use anyway, since I took it apart. This is a 20-pound leader, and in case I don't remember if I mentioned it in the first video, I use a lighter weight line for my leader than my main line. Especially on bottom rigs, because you never know what you're going to snag into. That way if I do snag, sinkers are expensive. I don't want to lose sinkers. So I will intentionally make my leader weaker. So if it does get hung up, or if a fish breaks off, it's not going to break off of here on my main line, it's going to break off on my leader, so I get to keep my expensive sinker. I ain't worried about hooks or bait, those are cheap. Just a regular fisherman's clinch knot. Equally strong knot, not as strong as the polymer knot, so I know if anything that knot's going to give out first if the line itself doesn't break. And then however long of a leader you want, and the basic hook. I'm going to use a number 6 treble hook, solely because next time I go fishing, I'm going to be fishing for channel cats using sudden impact fiber bait. So these little treble hooks work really great for that. So I'm just going to get this rigged up and set up now. Uh-oh. Carolina rigs are awesome for fishing bottom. Nothing clunky, really easy to cast. Just make sure if you're bouncing between different rigs, if you go from a top float to a Carolina rig or a Santee Cooper rig, that you adjust your spool if you're using a bait caster. Most people should know that. Different weight is going to pull your spool faster. So if you got a lighter setup like this, you might want it a little bit looser, so calibrate your reel accordingly. And that is the Carolina rig. The way it works, for those who don't know, is when you cast it out there, it'll sit on bottom. If you're in current, maybe your bait will flap around. If you're in still water or a lake, it'll just kind of lay there. But it's got a slip, just like the slip float. The line just feeds through it, so when the weight's sitting there on the ground, the fish takes off with your bait, the weight sits there, so it doesn't feel any resistance. The weight's there just to help you kind of cast it out and keep it on the bottom. But when the fish takes off, they don't feel anything until you go to yank and set the hook. So it's like a sneak attack rig. So that's all there is to this, and that bead is there to help protect my knot. Carolina rig. Now, knock that there to the side. When fishing on the bottom, oh, I forgot to backtrack ahead. This is the concept of a Santee Cooper rig for people who don't know. Just take you any kind of float, peg float. This will work perfectly fine. Whatever type of little float you want. Does not matter at all. Doesn't have to be fancy. Just rig this sucker to your line. If I can get it to pop up. These floats have never been my favorite. But that'll sit there like that. So when your Carolina rig, when your weight's sitting there on the ground, this is your leader. Your bait will hang off the bottom. So it's one way to kind of suspend it. It's another way if you're fishing a really rocky area to keep your hook out of the rocks. So if you're using cut bait or something that's not going to move, like say even sudden impact, it'll just sit there. Now if you're dragging or drifting on a boat, or if you're fishing in current in a river or stream, this will keep it up in the current, and your bait will kind of do like this, and it keeps it up off the bottom. So if a fish sees it, it'll feel the vibrations, the scent trail goes better. So it's another variation. All it is a Carolina rig with a float on the leader, and depending on how close you got your float to the bait, the higher up it'll be, as long as the bait doesn't weigh more than the float. I gotta get this back off. So that's that. Now, to demonstrate how to put this on your pole, basic simple way. Let's use hyper green this time. I used blue in the last one. Basic simple way, just take you some tape. Again, I will tape my battery, keep the pins tight. I do this no matter how I mount my lights. I always tape my battery, always, always, always. Take another piece of tape, and you would simply wrap it to your pole like that, however high up or low you want. The higher up, the more sensitive you'll see it bounce, obviously. I've never had it interfere with my line. Just keep it on the side of the line opposite of the eyes, so underneath the eyes. If you're using an open bail, it'll look like this, right? If you're using a bait caster or a push button spinner reel, it'll look like that, so you'll have it under on the bottom side of your pole. And you'll just wrap it around in between the eyes somewhere. And you'll just wrap some tape around, pull your line up out of the way if you need to. Wrap it around and it'll stick there. If you don't want sticky tape residue, take you some Teflon tape and wrap it around. Teflon tape's kind of tricky as it is, but you will totally should have used it the other way. Get that Teflon tape around there, and then put your light on. And just very snugly. This isn't how I normally do it. I would take more time, but it'll sit on there like that. So it's not in the way of your line. So when you get a bite, you'll see that bounce. One way to do it. That's how I would do if I'm fishing on the bottom, if I'm setting it in a rod holder. Even if you're setting it on the ground, just on a stick, or laying it up against a rock, anywhere where this is gonna bounce, you'll see it. So Whisker Stix got plenty of uses for night fishing. I know a lot of the river guys like to fish on bottom or use some variation of what I got, whether it's a three-way rig or whatever. That'll work for you. Even if you're fishing in tailwaters, like near a dam, and you got a lot of current, and you're putting a lot of weight down, and your rod is just staying bent like that, you'll still see that sucker bow down when you got something big. You know what to look for. So that's one way to keep your pole lit, so you can keep an eye on them for the bottom. I'll have another little quick section for a different method in the next video, so once I get this uploaded, I'll start another one. We'll see you guys in a little bit. Thanks for watching. Appreciate the support by everybody. I never expected these to get so much popularity, so I'm trying to do these to satisfy everybody. So if you guys want a video of something that you think you like, let me know, and then I'll try to make it happen. So we'll see you guys in a little bit on the next one. Thanks.